You did not get a raise. You got a speech about gratitude, and it worked, at least for a while. But there is something deeper than that, something worth understanding before another year goes by. Companies do not pay you less because you are worth less. They pay you less because they know that you do not know how much you are worth. And as long as that equation remains unchanged, the system has no reason to change. When was the last time you seriously thought about asking for a raise? And what happened immediately after that thought? Because most likely, what followed was not a conversation with your boss. It was a conversation with yourself. One where you went through every reason why this was not the right time. The job market is tough right now. The company is restructuring. I do not want to seem ungrateful. I'm lucky to have a stable job, and that already means a lot. That internal conversation did not come out of nowhere. It was built with very specific materials. Because what sits underneath all of this is not bad luck. It is by design. The first mechanism, controlling what you know. Most companies do not need to convince you that you deserve less. They only need to prevent you from discovering what you are actually worth. That distinction completely changes the analysis. Because if the problem were that the company actively undervalued you, there would be something visible to confront. Something you could name. But the real mechanism is quieter than that. It works through omission, through opacity, through the absence of conversations that never begin, and through cultures where asking how much a coworker makes feels almost like crossing a line. In most corporate environments, talking about salaries with coworkers is socially discouraged. Not always explicitly, but there is an unspoken consensus that the subject is uncomfortable, divisive, inappropriate, and that consensus does not benefit employees. It benefits the people who manage payroll. Because the moment you lose your point of reference, your current salary starts to feel like an objective measure of your value, as if it were the result of a fair and complete evaluation of what you contribute, as if the company had carefully calculated what you deserve, and that number were the honest conclusion of that process. It is not. Your current salary is the result of what you knew, or did not know, when you negotiated. And if you never really negotiated, it is the result of what you accepted before you understood the game. If this analysis is putting words to something you have been feeling but could not explain, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That is why this space exists, so that you stop walking into professional environments without understanding the rules operating beneath the surface. Hit the like button if you want to keep seeing this kind of content. Now let us keep going. The second mechanism, what they give you instead of money. When financial compensation is not competitive, organizations deploy something that, on the surface, looks like genuine recognition. The important observation is not that these things exist, it is what they are used for. Your name on the screen during the all-hands meeting. The email from the director copied to the entire department. The new title that sounds better than the previous one but changes nothing in your bank account. The end-of-year dinner at a restaurant the company chose, on a night the company selected, to celebrate a year that you worked. What very few people notice in time is this. Public recognition increases the political cost of asking for more money. Because after your name appeared on that screen in front of the entire company, asking for a raise starts to feel like a contradiction. As if you were challenging a story you had just confirmed in public. As if the gratitude you showed yesterday somehow invalidated the conversation you need to have today. And that does not happen by accident. Emotional recognition activates many of the same mechanisms as material compensation. It creates belonging, visibility, and a sense of value. Some human resources processes are designed, at least in part, for exactly that purpose: to manage your subjective experience of feeling valued without requiring any actual movement in payroll. It is not a conspiracy. It is an optimization. And it operates with a quiet efficiency that very few people stop to examine. The third mechanism, the cost of being predictable. What comes next is the practical consequence of everything above. And it is the part that is hardest to accept. Valeria has spent 6 years at the same company. She is the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. She has never missed a deadline. She has never turned down an extra project. And in 6 years, she has never asked for a raise. Not because she did not need one, but because she always found a reason to wait a little longer. The timing was not right. The company was in transition. Next year would be better. Andrea entered the same industry 3 years after Valeria. After 12 months on the job, she received a call from a recruiter. She was not looking to leave, but she accepted the conversation anyway, just to find out what she was worth in the market. And what she discovered during that call completely changed the way she understood her relationship with work. Today, Valeria and Andrea have comparable profiles, similar results, similar reputations, but Andrea earns 35% more. Not because she is a better professional, but because at some point she decided that her loyalty was not negotiable, but her salary was. That is what the system never tells you when you enter. The system rewards movement, not merit. The system rewards friction, not loyalty. The most underpaid employee in an organization is not always the lowest performer. Very often, it is the most predictable one. The company knows that Valeria is going to stay. It knows that her tolerance threshold is high. And because of that, there is no pressure. Without pressure, the compensation system does not budge. Not because it is morally unfair, but because it was designed to respond to signals. And quiet loyalty is not a signal the system recognizes. Loyalty, in compensation terms, is not an invisible virtue that accumulates over time and eventually comes back with interest. Structurally speaking, it is a silent penalty. What your current salary is not. The problem is not that you are underpaid. The problem is that you continue using your current salary as evidence of your value. There is a very specific kind of anger that appears the first time you truly understand this. Many people eventually discover that the company that denied them a raise for years hired their replacement, or someone in an equivalent role, at exactly the salary they had been asking for. Not a little more. Exactly that number. The number that supposedly was not in the budget. The number that was supposedly too much for someone with their experience. It turned out the money was there all along. What was missing was the reason to give it to the person who was already inside. Stay with that idea for a moment, because that is not an anomaly, and it is not an administrative mistake. That is exactly how the system works when nobody challenges it. When you walk into a negotiation, anchor the conversation to the market, not to your history, because your history is made, in part, of every time you did not negotiate. Using that history as your starting point means allowing the past to place a ceiling on the future, what nobody is going to fix for you. Before talking about gratitude, there is something that deserves to be said clearly. The company that benefits from underpaying you is not going to fix that voluntarily, not because it is cruel, but because it has no structural reason to do so as long as nothing in the environment changes. The day they believe you might leave, that the market is paying attention to you, that your predictability is no longer guaranteed, suddenly they will find the money, sometimes in surprisingly generous ways. And in that moment, you will understand with a clarity that hurts a little that the money was always available. What was never available was the reason to give it to you. Feeling gratitude for your job is not wrong. It is a completely legitimate human response. But gratitude should never become the argument you use to accept less than what your work creates for the organization. Understanding that does not make you cynical. It makes you harder to manage. And in the corporate world, that is worth exactly what they have been refusing to pay you. Do not ask how much you are worth to the company. Ask how much it would cost to replace you. The difference between those two answers is everything you need to know. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The next time someone tells you that this is not the right time to talk about salaries, you will know exactly what is happening behind that sentence. Hit the like button if this content gave you something useful. See you in the next video.